Look, everybody, it's breaking the flaw. He's breaking the flaw. He's not breaking the law. He's breaking the flaw. Screwed it up. Normally it's like breaking the flaw, breaking the flaw. Breaking the flaw, breaking the flaw. He's not breaking the law, he's breaking the flaw. Breaking the flaw, you can cut that out. Put it in your next intro.
Alright, I think they're arriving now. Looks like we have possibly another activist type. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, maybe that might be a police officer. Oh, he's very curious to why I'm filming. Oh, I know who it is. It's nobody. How you doing?
I almost didn't recognize you because I thought the viewfinder over your mouth with a mask.
Oh, really? This thing?
Yeah, it's a protection of the camera. I thought you were wearing a mask. I was like, no, that's not him.
No, not today. Not today.
Okay, I'll be right back.
All right. Guys, look at this retired interceptor here. There you go. Free Talk Live, LRN.FM, guys. They're from Keene, New Hampshire. They broadcast out of Keene. Wow. That is a great radio show. Go check them out. That's one of the hosts there. That's the Andrew something. Helping in town. They arrested him. We all had a party in the police station. We had a pizza party in the police station. Remember the pizza party in the police station? For Andrew Carroll, remember that? I remember last time we were here together, it was Andrew Carroll. Remember holding a little bit of cannabis?
You were here way back then?
Yeah.
What happened to you for years? You disappeared?
Yeah, I moved out of Keene and
oh, okay.
Yeah, I had to make money, man. I had to find other ways.
Yeah, see, we don't have any fucking capitalists in Keene. All he's got is dilettantes. If you don't have any employees, you're not a capitalist. You're a dilettante.
Yeah.
You're playing games. You're not running a business.
Exactly.
And everything here is a one-man show. It's all chiefs, no Indians. And I'd give my left nut for a fucking chief of staff, you know, because I got a software project going. I can't do it without a fucking chief of staff. The thing is, I've actually worked in the corporate world, so I know that.
Yeah.
Most of the people here don't even know they need an employee. They're like, no, I'll stuff all these envelopes myself. I'll say $350. Fuck your $350. You could make more money if you had a goddamn employee.
How y'all doing? How's it going, Joe? Michael, nice to meet you.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
All right, so hey, if I could just get permission on camera because of YouTube purposes, that I can film. Okay, all right, thank you. Because he's 16 years old, I just make sure. Yeah. Oh, we got a cam back. Close cam. All right. Hey, if someone wants to threaten and take one of your family members away, I think it's a family event, right? That's how I look at it.
It's
important for them to know
those ones.
the teeth that the beast had.
Yes, absolutely.
So the younger they
extent.
learn that, the less we have to deprogram them.
That's right. It's harder later on, right? Once you're fully indoctrinated.
We do our own sort of brainwashing at home.
But with better
voluntary.
soap, right? Okay. Not the chemically processed stuff. No.
Lemongrass soap.
Lemongrass soap.
Guilty porcupine.
There you go.
I didn't know a man with a dog named Apache for the same reason who may have.
So I called earlier, and
When
the cop
Apaches
who
ran out of
has,
food, population
who called us is not here
The
yet.
population of dogs dropped dramatically.
So, but they said anybody can process them.
Okay.
I don't know what they'll do with them. Are you live streaming?
I am live streaming. Yeah. Yep. I have 16 people watch right now. Probably get more in a few minutes. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was
But
watching you the other day when you were doing some walking around, and what? It was the state
capitol.
place.
Oh, yeah, and all the back lot and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's our land. Well, they're gonna force us to pay for it. It's mine. That's how I look at it.
Assert yourself.
And I fought for it, and we won. Where it was still the film in the back there. So yeah, the guy was telling us I was trespassing, but then his supervisor came and said, "No, you're good." So
generally prefer.
Yeah, exactly.
My experience has been with stadies in
I don't
New
know for
Hampshire
sure.
that
You don't want
they
to
don't
risk
care for the
everything you've done
cameras,
might
and they
generate
really
more,
just
because
prefer.
then they might generate more.
it's, you know, stadies and generally across the states, it's harder to film because they're on highways, right? Generally, but whenever you can capture them, yeah, they tend to get triggered because they're not used to it, right? The local PDs are more used to it than anything. But can you tell me more about why you guys are here today?
Yeah, so he was chased by some men with guns.
Yeah.
Back in August, and the men with guns actually, after they chased him and caused him to crash his motorcycle, gave him a ride home.
Oh, really? Well, how nice, right?
Yeah, right. And that was the last we heard of it. And then up until about a week or maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, we started getting calls from Officer Lepore of the Keene PD. Didn't say why he was calling, just wanted to call back. And I have no business with the police, so fuck them. I'm not calling them back.
No, they actually ran him down. Like, is that how it worked, or just like chased him to the point where he crashed or something? I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, people with guns were chasing him on a motorcycle.
Yeah, and it causing you to crash. Hi, how you doing?
I'm good.
I'm Joa from Breaking the Flaw. I'll shake your hand. There you go. No problem. And you're the victim in this case. They would say otherwise. The PD would say otherwise. But yeah. So you like motorcycles, huh?
Oh yeah.
How's the motorcycle doing? How you doing from the crash?
I'm doing good. The motorcycle is it works still.
That's good.
It's currently sitting away.
Yeah. Well, man, that's cool. It still works and you can still use it. Okay, that's what's good. They didn't shoot it up or anything like that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, kudos on not getting shot.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
They do that.
And how'd you find out about this supposed warrant? And we don't even know if it's for that. Do we know that for sure?
I have no idea.
Okay, if you don't know if the
Only
warrant's
my
for that, why are you talking about it?
I know. I didn't. I asked him. I
Don't
just
publish that.
No, I know,
find
but
out
we don't
the
really know what
warrant's
the warrant's for. But that was something that happened in the past that you'd think it might have. But
Yeah, well, those are legitimate things.
Yeah.
They're factual that it did happen.
yeah.
Okay.
You know.
That doesn't necessarily mean I want to. I want to put record of it.
Yeah, I know. I don't. We don't know
I'm
what
just
it really
busting
is
your
for.
balls,
I get you.
I'm sure the
They
police-
In all
definitely
fairness.
have record of
I'm
it,
sure the
because
police
gave
know they
him
did.
a ride home that night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they already know.
Yeah, they brought him to the house with all his gear, and
Oh, wow.
except for the bike. I
Right.
had to pay a $150 ransom in the morning to pick that up.
Yeah. Yeah, they arrested my car over in Manchester a while ago. I got her out, but I was like, you get yourself arrested one more time, I'm leaving you to rot.
Hey, it just goes back to where it came from. If anything.
Well, yeah, but she's not a bad girl. She just
Right.
fell in with a bad crowd.
I see. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
For those who don't know, in the listening audience, I drive a former police car.
Yeah.
Very sorry.
They saw it. They saw it. But thank you for rescuing that poor soul.
Yeah, she's much happier now.
All right, so I think we're
All
going
right.
to go in and do this.
All right, let's do it.
How well they'll let us record.
Oh, yeah, they will. You have 100% right to film in all public areas, publicly accessible areas. Trust me, I know. I went behind the state trooper's garage.
Your camera.
Is your head like a hole? Is it black as your soul? Would you rather die than give them control?
Oh, God, yes. How'd you know that?
Well,
I am going to give these assholes 75 cents.
uh-oh.
Yeah.
You know what I have to say about that? Bow down before the one,
Serve.
the one you serve. You're gonna get what you deserve, and that's probably
Apparently, I'm not
flat
gonna
soda.
get what I deserve.
You don't get what you deserve.
Yeah, I'm not going to get shit out of these assholes. Fuck them. Right, the law was written by a fucking idiot, as
Yeah.
most of them are.
Yeah.
Imagine I was a member of Congress, and imagine I was an idiot. But I repeat myself.
Oh man.
Mark Twain actually said that.
Oh really? That's a good one.
Yeah, he was good. He was good. I think he was also the guy who said no man's life, liberty, or property is safe when the legislature is in session.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. You know, there's all these shutdowns. I didn't like, I mean, the government shutdown, not the other shutdowns, not the business shutdowns.
Shut it down.
Yeah, when they shut down the government, we're like, all right, cool.
Get out of the way.
Yeah, that's
Now
that's exactly what we want. I'm gonna get a better light over here and go this way.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, if we just shut it down and they're not open, well, they can't blame me for not paying their little games and fines.
Because they don't have to be reasonable. They have more guns than you do, and they can kill you, and nobody will care. Except me. I will care.
Oh, man. It's what that's great. I keep on hearing nobody now, and it's just such a play on it, and it's like...
I know. It's addictive. It's like popping the little bubble pops. You know it's stupid, but you just keep doing it.
Oh, my God. There was another name like that. I forget what it was. Somebody?
Everybody?
Everybody?
See, I've been thinking that would be great if 1 year before the election we all changed our names to like nobody, somebody, everybody, you know.
Yeah.
So nobody thought somebody was going to do it. Anybody could have done it. Everybody wanted it done.
Oh, man. Or change the name to like Not a Soul. Not a soul in the world would do that.
There you go. But the thing is, Not a Soul would have to be a corporation.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
Because what's a person without a soul? It's a corporation.
Oh, good point. Unless you don't believe in souls, right?
Well, to me, a soul is not necessarily religious, okay? Because the Church of the Invisible Hand is agnostic deism. Mm-hmm. So basically, to me, a soul is the sum of that part of a man which cannot be explained by chemistry and electricity. And there is part of that I think everybody acknowledges. A man is more than the sum of his parts. So your soul is the part of you, is the difference between you and the sum of your parts.
Gotcha.
It's the part that isn't there anymore when you're dead and you're just me.
It's also the one thing they can't take from you unless they, I guess, maybe capital punishment.
They can. They do it through Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah.
And that's when you've abandoned your own judgment, your own belief,
right,
your own morals, and said, no, theirs is better because they've got the guns. You know, the logic there shows the problem with the thinking.
Mm-hmm, yeah. You know, I was watching this thing yesterday. That it's an old video. I don't know where it came from, but it's Bill Gates. What do you call it? Briefing the CIA about spreading 2 viruses in the Middle East. Okay, this is back in 2005. Spreading 2 viruses in the Middle East because the frontal lobe proved, like under CAT scans, the frontal lobe activity is religious, radical religious belief. Right, this is what he's saying. But if you don't have a radical religion, you basically have the more comprehensive side of your brain thinking versus like the frontal lobe. But I think the frontal lobe is important in thinking.
The frontal lobe is generally considered, I thought, to be the seat of rational thought. So
right.
That's actually, you know, I don't know who didn't know that in that conversation, or maybe I'm wrong about it, because, you know, I'm not trying to fuck with anybody's head, so I don't really need to know how it's put together. But damn.
What is it?
Sounds motherfucking cold.
Oh, yeah, it's cool. Want to go back in?
Yeah,
let's get back in. Oh. Yeah, no problem.
Oh, man, I had 10 minutes to get here, so I ran out of the code.
Oh, no worries.
Oh, shit.
Oh, thank you. Let me take a peek at what's going on here.
Oh, so are you going to stick around until you get him back, or?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not leaving here. He's just going to abandon his kid here, you know.
Well, I mean, most people do, especially if they're going to stay for 6 months. But
I'll be here every day if they keep him for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Actually, no, I think it would make for quite a good video if I just refused to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely would.
It's not necessarily
Well, you can only get so lucky.
I was actually planning to be armed, but I got some guidance that said don't do that. So whatever.
See, we've generally done that, I don't know if showing up with one armed guy is the right answer, but if I had 2 or 3 guys, I'd definitely say show up armed.
Well, normally I open carry.
You're right, right.
You know, so like when I put on my belt this morning, actually,
The first video of me that ever went on the internet because of the Free State Project was actually me walking into a courthouse with an empty holster. Okay. Because at first I was like, well, the law says I have to check my gun, so we got them to agree to check my gun. But then I was like, nah, I'm not giving my gun to these people. So I just put it in the trunk. That was back when I was
They'll give it to an alcoholic in the back or a heroin addict that then cause the guy to shoot somebody, and then your fingerprints are on it.
Why would they need to give it to a heroin addict? They shoot people all the time.
That's true, but they need somebody. Well,
oh, you think they need a patsy?
Well,
usually they just shoot somebody and then throw the gun down.
Well, I'm just thinking like, well, then they can arrest you for like, I don't know, some sort of charge relating to guns and, you know, well, you left your gun and now somebody got it. And
you left your gun in an incompetent hand. Who's mine? What did they do?
They did was like reckless something or other. Some sort of reckless charge. I don't know what the legal terms
Anytime
are.
the police charge you with reckless anything, it's the pot calling the kettle.
Yeah, it's like
mission statement.
They just get big too.
I mean, like right in the mission statement, the mission of the Keene Police Department is to protect life and property and to maintain order, right? Well, it seemed like they weren't really protecting his life by chasing him.
Nope.
And his property ended up getting a little bit damaged. It says it still works, but it's damaged. So they broke the mission statement right there. That's how I look at it. They're hypocrites.
That's a pretty common thing. Usually when they have the guns, they make up the rules.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no victim, no crime.
No victim, no crime. Shouldn't serve the time.
Because they have to prove that you
Gordon is his name. The warrant is for disobeying an officer and operating a vehicle without a license. Since he is refusing to wear a mask, they will do the bail over the phone because he will not go in front of a judge. It'll be done in 15 to 20 minutes.
Ooh, interesting.
I'm going to leave this with you.
Okay.
So he got the butthurt charge, basically, disobeying a cop.
And operating a vehicle without a license.
Well,
How did he
I'd be proud.
Who knows?
I mean, what's the accusation? Because
well, they can make that up. Who knows what they decided to do that?
he couldn't have disobeyed a cop because
He was on a motorcycle, so yeah, they could have said anything
that doesn't make any sense.
And when he talked to them on the phone, he did exactly what they wanted him to do.
Yeah, he cooperated. Yeah, and he was far, far away from the cops. They never actually pulled him over and then he ran, or anything of that nature. I know for a fact because I saw him on his bike, and he was probably a good minute or two ahead of the police.
All alleged.
When they ran. That's what, well, alleged, yes, allegedly anyway.
Oh, there we go, alleged.
But, well, he didn't run, but that's the point that I'm making is he couldn't have run because they were so far behind that he couldn't have known in the first place that he was, you know, what they're claiming is running. But he definitely didn't run from the cops if that's what their accusation is.
Well, I've been teaching him to disobey for quite a few years, and he's been disobeying the shit out of us, so he's finally disobeying the right people.
Corrigan is the officer's name. He said if you have questions, you need to speak with them, call, and they'll patch you through.
All right, kind of like Billy.
All right, so disobeying a police officer, which actually, if that's correct, that doesn't even apply because that's for if you're like driving a vehicle, that's specific to that. So that actually is not applicable. It would be like disorderly, so they probably would have had to charge him with. So that's I think you can win on those grounds on that one as well as a disobeying a police officer if that's what he's actually charged with. I'm wondering if the prosecutor is going to change that to disorderly because what they're charging him with doesn't make any sense as far as the law as I understand it. And I've looked at the law regarding disobeying a cop because I was thinking, well, if disobeying a cop is a crime, then basically any time that you do anything that's not immediately as the cop describes, it would be a crime.
Yeah, that's their catch-all, right?
Well, right. That would be, and if you're in a police, if you're driving, I'm sorry, if you're in a car driving a vehicle of some kind, that is a charge, but that's specific to a vehicle. So
I'm not sure how you could be disobeying as you're driving.
Right, you would have to be pulled over in a vehicle and then disobey,
Yeah.
You know, given that they never were in front of him, you know, talking to him, that seems like a charge that they shouldn't be able to win on.
Well, as we all know, it's generally a bunch of horse shit they pile on.
It's a scam. It's a scam.
In order to get you to plead and scare the shit out of you. And
scam. I don't know if scam's quite the right word, but it's one big fraud, I think, on the people as far as the way the system works. They tell you it works one way, and in the real world, it doesn't work that way.
We just call it scat. How about that? You know what scat is
Shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like disorderly conduct, that's just cop butthurt charges. Like he didn't like what you said or whatever. But did you actually hurt anybody? No. So
disorderly, as I understand it, and I don't know if this is in the law itself, and I don't think it is, but my understanding is, and presumably this would be precedent, and if it's not in the law itself, but as I understand it, according to a lawyer that I spoke with, in order for it to be disorderly, they have to actually have a third-party report that's not a police officer, a complaint that's not a police officer. So like if you're in front of a cop, there's not going to be a third-party complainant. So that disorderly charge, you should be able to get thrown, I mean, you should be able to win on it, at least in court, based on that. But I don't know what the precedent is. You probably are going to need a lawyer to figure all that stuff out.
Yeah, do they even have court now? You know, is it all done over
Zoom
meeting?
It's all Zoom.
And then what if they chose, you know, what if the judge finds you in contempt? You know, are they going to like digitally lock you up? You know, they're going to freeze your Zoom account? Or are they going to send the Bearcat to come get you?
Yeah, I definitely would refuse to use Zoom if they were to put me in front of it on principle. So it'd be interesting to see what they did at that point.
Well, according to their words on paper, you're entitled to a trial, maybe even a jury of your peers too, right? I don't know if these particular.
If it's less than, if it's okay. So I think if it's a B misdemeanor, you have the right to a trial. But if it's an A misdemeanor, there's no jail time, and thus you don't have a right to a trial.
And that would be convenient for them if they made it an A misdemeanor.
Right, it would be convenient, definitely. If it's a B misdemeanor, you can argue jury nullification, in New Hampshire at least. So certainly will be interesting to see what the charges actually are, you know, in the end, because they can also change things on you.
Okay.
So just because this is what they've charged him with so far or currently on arrest doesn't mean that's what the prosecutor is going to actually bring against him. So these are games they like to play. They want you to do all your research on this, you know, one charge or two charges, and then they change it on you, and they want you to be as unprepared as possible when it comes to trial. So those are definitely some of the games that I know they like to play. Some of the other games they like to play is they won't tell you that there's an arrest warrant out. Obviously, that didn't happen in his case, but frequently they want you to encounter a cop because it endangers your life. You know, especially if you're like a cop blocker or something of that nature, where you're going out filming police. You know,
it also gives them kind of a step in your door, literally. If they're getting you for, say, a warrant, now they have some sort of probable cause to start searching your vehicle if they get you with driving. So they're always trying to look for more to charge you with, right?
Yeah,
so they
pirates.
Yeah, piracy.
It's mostly what they are is road pirates.
I need your booty. Fuck a bunch of road pirates and highwaymen.
Why, you know, lawyers are useful. It's, you know, often like disorderly, for example. How would I have known? I was charged with disorderly. It's the only time I've ever been arrested. I wasn't disorderly, but I couldn't have known that because the law itself is so overly broad.
Right.
But it's been narrowed a little. So it's still overly broad, but because it was narrowed, they basically dropped the charges when I brought a lawyer into play. But I wouldn't have known to bring a lawyer into play if it wasn't for the fact that I decided to hire a lawyer on principle to fight those charges. And if I hadn't, you know, if they hadn't dropped the case on me as a result of that, then I wouldn't have been able to sue them.
They've been railroad
for violating my rights.
Was it the Manch one? Was that Manch?
Yeah, it was Manchester. I was charged with disorderly conduct initially. Basically, I refused ID. You have no obligation to provide ID in New Hampshire. The cops have a right to ask, but there's no charge or criminal or otherwise for refusing to ID. Now, if you refuse to ID, they can arrest you, but there's no charges associated with it. So, and the arrest is basically for the purpose of identification. Now, the police tend not to seem to know that because they will, or maybe for retaliation, they will charge you with something like disorderly, and that's basically so that you have to fight something in the court system.
It's easier to fight one charge than it is two charges, typically.
Yeah, so I got charged with disorderly, even though I wasn't disorderly. I also got charged with crossing the street afterward, which also wasn't a crime. So there's no jaywalking law in New Hampshire. There is certain specific circumstances.
In towns.
Yeah, where you can't cross the street. Like, for example, you can't cross diagonally at an intersection with a traffic light if there is no crosswalk. Or if there's adjacent intersections with traffic lights, you also can't cross, but adjacent means basically something that's close together. Now, close together isn't in the law, but it is in like precedent. So basically, in my case, I did cross the street, but there wasn't an adjacent traffic light. The way it's worded is adjacent intersection with a traffic light. So I crossed, but where I crossed wasn't adjacent because it was many miles away. You couldn't even see the other intersection. And the next intersection over didn't actually have a traffic light or anything. It was yeah, I mean, there was a stop sign on the one street, but not the street in which I was crossing anyway. So like the whole thing, there was literally nothing they had on me. But because they didn't like the fact that I was filming them and I crossed the street at a DUI checkpoint,
they want to retaliate real quick and make sure that they secure their scene and all that, whatever.
Sir. Hey, get out of the road. Hey, safety is my concern. Get over on the sidewalk where you belong now.
Have you heard of the Glick decision?
Sir,
have you heard of the Glick
on the sidewalk right now.
Safety is my
concern.
Why are you threatening this man?
Sir, you're about ready to get summons for operating.
Yeah, you got this here?
I got it.
Are you getting this in front of my camera?
You should probably come over here.
You have no right to touch my camera? I'm a member of the press.
You have your ID.
I have no obligation to give you any ID whatsoever. I'm merely trying to cross the road.
You can't cross the road. This is a crosswalk. Move over.
Go ahead. No obligation to provide ID unless I'm...
I don't appreciate you yelling, man. Are you really seriously gonna... Paddy wagon's here. He appears to be in handcuffs, is being loaded into the paddy wagon.
And like one of the things I'm doing now is when I do auditing at town halls, city halls, is I'm looking up easement codes, like where are you allowed to walk, because that's important to like what I do in the auditing. So we want to know where the easement, how many feet do we have, so we're not trespassing and all that jazz. Even if like someone says, get off my property, and you're on the grass that he maintains, it's still considered easement.
Yeah, when you're parking a car on the street, basically, you got to be off the road to a certain degree, and so there's definitely going to be easement. How much that easement is, I don't actually know what it is. Did you look it up by chance? I'm curious.
Well, it's town by town, and typically they follow based on the length of the road. That like, say you're like this small, block to block to block, like in a little town here, say Keene. Those easements are very clearly defined. 15 feet to the curb from the corner, and like you can park in the designated areas. They probably say that in the law. But like if you go in the middle of nowheres, they'll say if there's 1,000 feet of road, you're allowed to park this close to the edge of the road and all this stuff. Like, or you have this many feet of easement to park or to walk and all that. So there's all specific town to town.
Is there a rough generalization of what's generally safe that you can?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say what they're, because it's different. Like I said, town, but like Keene would probably be very, very strict on how you can park on the side of the road if it's not designated. I think they are. That's my opinion.
Right. Right. I'm thinking more in places where there isn't a sidewalk, basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
If there's not a sidewalk, I would think that there's probably a good at least 3, 4, 5, 6 feet on the side of the road that has got to be easement.
Like, let's say we're on 101 right now, right? Yeah. And which is kind of like intermediary, like side roads that go up to 40 to sometimes I think 50 miles per hour, possibly. I don't know if you can park on the side of the road over there, right?
Okay,
because
I actually know the answer to this.
Yeah.
And you can, as long as you can definitely do it on 101. Basically, as long as if there's exit numbers or streets that intersect it. then you basically you in New Hampshire at least you can park on that road.
Wait, exit numbers.
If there's not exit numbers.
Oh, if there's not
so
exit
if you're
numbers.
not on an actual highway with exit numbers where you have to pull off on a ramp
Yes,
to get
yes.
off, then that's I don't know what all the technical terms are, but that's the type of highway where you can again, if it doesn't have the exit numbers and it doesn't have the off ramps, then you can park on that road. Basically, as long as there's some sort of if there's houses on that road, or parking lots that are connected to it, or side roads that connect directly to it, then you can park on it.
Unless clearly marked and all that jazz.
Yeah.
I know Eric Brandt. I don't know if you heard of Eric Brandt, but he's a big component to free speech. He pulled over on the highway to get a traffic stop, and he ended up getting arrested. So this, I don't know what state it was, but he did try to film a traffic stop on the highway.
We're pretty knowledgeable about
He
this.
pushes the limits. Eric Brandt pushes the limits.
We're pretty knowledgeable about this in New Hampshire because they've tried to get us on that before, and we've won. Other activists have won in New Hampshire, where they dropped it basically because it's very clear that as long as you're not on an interstate highway basically in New Hampshire, and there's one interstate highway, you're basically good to park on the side.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I like to think that if you are a member of the press, if there's such thing as memberships, but if you are a
member of the press is anybody basically with a camera.
Right, I just like that terminology is like this is the way we use it. Like we say members of press, but really, if you are press, not a member, because a member in SUNY it's organizations.
You don't have to have a camera, like a reporter who's taking it for like a newspaper would also count as a member of the press.
Right, and like I've seen like the big big news channels like WMUR park on the side of the highway. So why can't I?
There's a reason that I have this very large press badge so that they cannot deny knowing that I am a member of the press and I'm there to film. So if they were to say try and charge you for something, that you were like, for example, a good example of this would be when they arrested the reporter they ticketed the reporter at at the governor's house here not that long ago.
Yeah.
Well,
Savage guy, right?
Yeah. Basically, if it was clearly pressed, he was not there for the rally or not the rally, but what they were. I'm trying to think.
Candlelight vigil.
Right. So it was a candlelight vigil, but they're not calling it a candlelight vigil. They're calling it something else. Picketing, they're calling it. And they outlawed picketing. Now, technically, they don't have the authority to do that, but the town, so in New Hampshire, there has to be a state law that passes that authorizes the town to pass an ordinance, which the state has not done. Therefore, even though the U.S. Supreme Court has said that you can pass such an ordinance to ban picketing, in certain cases, that ruling is not applicable because the state hasn't authorized an ordinance to be passed in the first place within New Hampshire anyway. So, but assuming that was lawful, the ordinance was lawful, the problem with it is that it's very specifically about picketing. The guy wasn't there for picketing. So, and it was clear based on the press credentials. Now, if you didn't have something that said press credentials, they could argue otherwise. But the fact that you showed up with press credentials in the first place, and all press credentials really is basically something laminated that you wear around your neck. There's not like a legal definition that I'm aware of.
You haven't been to Press University to get your press credentials?
No, you just got to print something off on your printer that says press on it, and be able to show that maybe at most in some way that you publish somewhere. So like if you publish to YouTube, you would be considered press. If you publish to a newspaper, you would be press. If you publish to a blog, that would be press.
I don't look at credentials as the way you signify you have credentials. Me holding up my camera is enough credential.
Well, yeah, so that should be the case. However, when you're in a courtroom, having video of yourself, clearly with a badge that says press on it, and identifying to the officer verbally as press, and I did this when I was arrested in Manchester filming. That's definitely was a really smart move, and the lawyer said that to me. He said that you did exactly what you should have done in that circumstance. Now, I wasn't perfect when I was arrested. There was some verbiage between me and the officer, and the less verbiage you have, the better.
Of course.
And there was some stuff on the video just before I crossed the street that said something like, "Let's test this," right? Like I knew what the law was. And when I said that, my mindset was, well, I know it's not illegal to cross the street here. However, on video, if you put this in front of a jury, they might think that I was trying to cross like a line and therefore I knew it was illegal when that wasn't actually what the story was. So, you got to be careful about not only what you say to the officer, but what also gets recorded on film. And that's something that inexperience, and even though I had years, you know, many hundreds of incidences with police, like not arrests, but you know, filming them, it was a mistake that I made.
I'm sorry, what is it that you
So it's not hard to make a mistake.
Like you could have said, I am testing the knowledge of the cops. That's what something you probably would want to have said.
Yeah, I mean, I said something like, let's see, to a question of, you know, an arrest, basically.
Right.
Somebody else said something about an arrest, and I said, well, let's see.
You fought it, you won, you sued, you won, right?
I did. But it's, you know, but those are the things that don't look good necessarily. Now, the lawyer said that it was fine, actually, everything was good, but that doesn't change the fact that what if I had said something slightly different, right? It could have been used against me. So, you know, I did an excellent job. It was something to look up to, but it wasn't as good as a, you know, a role-playing. If we had a role-playing exercise, you know, I would have been much better.
Sure.
So.
Less pressure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. It's good to practice for sure.
Yeah, practice.
We should have more practice sessions. I don't know.
Shouldn't need to practice sessions.
Well, you shouldn't need to. But just like, say, you know, shooting a gun, you need to keep up with it to make sure you're finely tuned and everything's clean and your target is, or your groupings are good. I think it's something we always need to practice because, you know, you haven't done it for a while, you're going to slip up.
Yep.
But this guy in here is getting triggered from my camera a little bit. We'll see what happens. I'm not going to instigate anything right now. I don't want to call it instigating, but...
Well, if they weren't, I think they're instigating.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, why we have one of our own in custody? While one is in custody, I don't want to stir anything up. That's fair. Sounds like someone's coming out.
Yeah, exactly right.
So one of the things that they like to do when they arrest people is release them through the back entrance and not the front.
Oh, really? It's kind of like a traditional thing.
One of the reasons they do that is because they want to break you from your support. And by releasing you at the back entrance, they do it a little bit.
Is there a back entrance here?
I don't know. I'm thinking they won't because this is a minor, but I don't know. It would be interesting if they did release him.
I don't remember Andrew Carroll when he came in here coming out the back. I think he came out the front. From what I remember. That was a while ago, though.
I don't know. Generally speaking, I think this is probably one of the best places for Mikey to be arrested. Cheshire County it's not Manchester.
Sure.
And probably anywhere other than Manchester, I think would be a decent place to be arrested in New Hampshire. But Cheshire County is definitely good.
Yeah, I had somebody tell me one time that Hillsborough, that's Hillsborough County, right? Something like that.
Yeah, Hillsborough is particularly rough.
Right. He said that you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
It's like people die in that jail.
Yeah. Like literally people die from like being poisoned with rat poison in which I think the jail is called there, Valley Street. So
it's exactly the term. I remember that being told to me. I think it was a damo that told me that. He said, "Don't fuck you up in there."
Yeah, supposedly it's a little bit better, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I still wouldn't want to be in there. And I was arrested at the Manchester police station. I was in there, so no, it was one of the reasons why I paid them the $40 because I wanted to be out.
Yeah, no one wants to be in there.
Over the weekend, actually, in Valley Street. But I would be much more likely to refuse to pay bail, you know, in the situation that I was not in Manchester. And I was conscientious of where I was arrested, so. But this is because, you know, how much violence do you want them to do against you?
Right.
Against you, and when you know that you're in a particularly corrupt area, you may want to take it a little bit less, you know, you want to push back a little bit less because you don't want to end up in the ground before you have had a chance to even have a trial. But Manchester's bad because the jury's corrupt. I mean, the judges corrupt, the prosecutors corrupt, everybody's corrupt. Cops are corrupt, everybody's corrupt. The whole system is corrupt.
I wouldn't say all the cops. There is one good cop that I've met in Manchester. He's been fantastic.
I'm going to disagree. I think all
Yeah.
cops are
Right.
fundamentally abusive, and they wouldn't be doing the job that they're doing, you know, if it wasn't for that case. You know, it's sort of like if you look at, I know this is, I don't know if cliche is the right word, but if you look at the, you know, Nazis, for example, they're going to say they were just doing their job, and that's the same excuse that every cop is going to use, you know, to justify his bad actions. But those bad actions they knew they would have to do before they became a cop. So, you know, I cannot say, oh, well, he's a good cop.
It's in the job
I mean, I'm not saying that there's not better and worse cops, but you know, you can't.
I think, well, I look at it like this. I think 90% of cops are bad, and then you got 10% cops that are not really good because they're standing by watching the bad cops do their crimes. So
yeah, and if you look at what cops do, more or less, you know, and obviously there's a little bit of difference between job descriptions when it comes to police officers, but most policing it's just another tax. It's another method of taxing the public.
Yeah,
and particularly the worst off in society. So, you know, it's a terrible system, and it's not intended to keep anybody safe.
No, certainly when they arrest people, they're not trying to keep you safe. They're trying to get you detained and booked and processed and all that jazz. Even though you may not have hurt anyone, they can still hurt you. And even if you're not resisting, they're going to, you know, get away with it.
What's crazy is that most arrests are over nonviolent, and I'll put crime in quote, but nonviolent crimes. And not property crimes either. They're not violent crimes and they're not property crimes. There are things like, you know, speeding or, you know,
suspended license
or drug use or misuse of plates or, you know, stuff that doesn't really have anything to do with safety. Now, it's not to say that the laws don't exist under the guise of safety, but the cops can't make people safer. The second somebody is released, you know, a $5 ticket or a $100 ticket isn't going to get them to stop speeding, not for very long anyway. And so if you start looking at like, well, how much does it cost to make us, and I put safer, quote in quote safer, well, it's extraordinarily expensive. And you know, these systems are mostly used. Most of the people in jail and prison are not in there, like I said, for violent crime. They're in there for nonviolent offenses, and they shouldn't be. Most violent crimes don't get solved. I don't recall exactly what the statistic is, but I think it's like, I'm probably wrong on this, but it's probably like something like 2/3 of murders don't get solved. I don't remember what the statistic actually is, but it was something absolutely insane. And if you think about all the money that gets thrown at it, and you consider the fact that most of the money gets spent on pulling people over, and victimless crimes, as opposed to on actual like detective work, you very quickly begin to realize that we really shouldn't have, you know, the police are really they actually create more victims because every time you arrest somebody, you're committing violence on them, right? So you're actually creating a situation where most of the violence occurs because of the police, and it doesn't even stop other violence from occurring.
Hey, justice is blind.
It's just senseless violence. Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that people should, you know, speed or drink and drive or anything like that. But at the end of the day, you know, you don't actually have a victim until you've actually hurt somebody, you know, where you either hit somebody with your car or something of that nature, right? Or whatever. And so it's not to say, I'm not advocating for people to be reckless, you know, with their behavior, but there is some risk to getting out on the road. And there's two parties here. There's a person who is taking that risk when they go out on the road, and there's the other party who is, you know, the person who actually caused the injury. So you are accepting that risk by going out on the road and taking those actions. And if you don't want to take that risk, well, that's your right, but it's also the other person's right to take greater risk than you might like them to take. And again, like I said, I'm not advocating for taking additional risks or, you know, excess risk, But, you know, that is part of, you know.
What's that saying? An eye for an eye, the whole world will go blind?
And really what it comes down to is that doesn't justify. Somebody taking a risk, right, does not justify the use of violence, is ultimately what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, unless somebody is actually pointing a gun at you and threatening you, you know, I would say I wouldn't shoot back necessarily, but you know, if there's not a
everything's circumstantial,
right, direct threat to your life, your actions are not justified, and it doesn't matter whether you're defending your property or you know, the police are, you know, trying to arrest somebody for a nonviolent crime. Both situations, you know, I would say are wrong because you're using violence against somebody who's not being violent. Mm-hmm. You're not defensive. It's not defensive violence, and that's the only kind of violence I'd say is justifiable.
Oh, absolutely. No, we could point the finger in that they've initiated violence on us for a long time.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not saying take action, people.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't advocate for killing cops, but I wouldn't cry over somebody who died as a result of their choices to become a cop either.
It's part of the job.
Yeah, it's part of the job description, and you know, it is what it is. It's not, you know, there's an easy way to have fewer cops being killed, and the way you do that is by not going to work for the police department, not paying more money to get more cops on the street. Yeah, so.
It's definitely been past 15, 20 minutes, right?
Yeah, it's 2 hours, you know.
Yeah, we're a little over an hour.
They must be questioning him or trying to.
Well, it has to do with sticks and tasers and everything.
Yeah, probably not, but they have a lot of means of threatening you when you're in there. They'll threaten you and say things like, well, if you don't cooperate, you're not getting released. It could be weeks or months, and you know, they'll lie to you about it, so.
Well, we'll see how badass it really is then.
Yeah. See if he does a better job than I did. He could. He had a little bit more information than I had going in, so. It's hard to be over-prepared when it comes to interacting with police. And even when you are prepared, that doesn't necessarily mean things are going to go well, because ultimately at the end of the day, you want to have ideally at least 2 people filming any kind of police interaction.
I feel a lot safer being here with 2 other, when there was 5 cameras here.
Now,
for
one
sure,
of the problems that we do have right now is that he is behind closed doors. We have no idea. We're basically, it's their word against his. If, you know, they claim, you know, that he's resisting or whatever, and he has no way to defend himself, you know, to those charges. So
it's pretty scary.
Yeah, it's definitely, I wouldn't want to be in there, if I could help it. He's investigating actual crimes.
I spoke to your wife, I think, earlier, and I told her I'd call when we were headed out. Are you guys out front still?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, we're walking out now.
All right.
Thank you.
They're walking out this way.
He said walking out front. So.
Okay.
Presumably they're going to come through here, but we don't know for sure.
Sounded like he was in a tunnel.
Echo chambers.
Yeah. Probably the hallways, but maybe not. Maybe within one of the rooms. It's a psychological thing, probably.
All right. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, Officer
Corrigan.
Yep. You have a badge number?
138.
Yeah, questions would be good. Were there any victims that?
I'm not going to talk about the crime because I'm not the
I'm sorry,
officer
you asked me if I had questions.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you have any documentation of victims or anything?
Not that I can give you right now.
That brought charges?
Not that I can give you right now.
Do you have any evidence?
Again, I'm not going to talk about the case. Do you have any issues with his arrest, any questions with his arrest and what's going on with him right now?
I do have issues with it, yeah.
Well, I'm sure I phrased that wrong. I apologize. You have questions for him? About bail, about anything like that court date?
Did you give documentation of the court date?
He's got everything there. There's also a number on there. If you have questions and want to call the person that bailed him,
yeah,
there's the number on there for that as well.
I do have somewhat of a philosophical question. Do you have any kids?
I have 3.
And if I were to show up with a gun and try to take them away, how would you respond to that?
Well, I question what was being done.
Yeah, you'd probably have some real issues.
Sure, any other questions? I'm not going to play fiddle games with you.
It's not a game.
Okay, good luck to you.
I just want to establish why
Wow.
we're here, because you have the gun.
Excellent.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
No problem.
And if it was your child, you would feel
Have a nice
probably
day.
pretty pissed off.
These violent games are not fun.
So,
Threats of violence through a legal system is cowardly.
did they body cavity search you?
No, they didn't give me my pennies.
They didn't want your pennies.
They didn't want my pennies.
They were pretty dirty, huh?
Yeah, I've got pennies here, here. Got them everywhere. They
It's
don't
good to
want
go with smelling like shit, right?
Yeah, right.
So how do you feel?
Well, it was pretty painless.
Yeah. So what happened? Did they interrogate you? Did they put you in a room by yourself in a cell?
No.
No.
No,
Did they fingerprint you? Did
Yeah.
they picture you?
Yeah.
What was the process? What happened?
Basically, I sat on a bench, filled some stuff out, and then fingerprinted me, took a picture, and then we called the bail commissioner. That was about it.
And now, what happened with the pennies? Did they take your pennies?
No, they didn't take my pennies.
No. Did they demand $40 to release? No. It's interesting. I wonder if there's an exception for minors in New Hampshire for
Maybe.
bail.
And what were the charges? What were the...
Disobeying an officer, Class A misdemeanor, and operating without a valid license, Class B misdemeanor.
Class A and Class B.
Yeah, so the disobeying a police officer, unless you are in a vehicle, that charge isn't valid. That's very specific to a vehicle. So if they pulled you over on the side of the road and you didn't do what the officer said, or if you were maybe driving by and the officer waved you some commands or something like that and you didn't do what they were telling you, that would be a valid charge. But it shouldn't be given that you were not in a vehicle at any time when they either talked to you or pulled you over or anything of that nature.
Okay.
Were our suspicions true?
I'm not a lawyer, but
this stemmed from the motorcycle chase?
Yeah. Well, I assume so.
Okay.
So.
All right, cool.
That's what you're accused of anyway.
Yeah, this was in August.
August 7th. August 6th.
So you disobeyed an officer and they just sort of wait that long and then just brought you home that night?
Date of offense, 8/07/2020.
Yeah. Because I remember the conversation very specifically. I have it on video. Best I could tell, you didn't disobey anybody, or else maybe they wouldn't have just like brought you home.
Yeah, because I wasn't in cuffs or anything.
Did they attempt to interrogate you?
No.
Did they read you Miranda rights or anything about you? Did you speak to a judge, or did a judge get on the? So you know interaction with the judge or anything? No. Interesting.
The only other person we talked to was the bail commissioner.
And what did he have to say?
She basically just said that you're gonna be released on PR.
On your own recognizance?
Yeah.
Well, that's
16 years
crazy.
old.
Because you're
16 years old.
Yeah.
All right.
You can't make a. Well, I guess that's not entirely true. You can make a contract, but you can't. Well, it's more complicated, I guess, with either a parent's permission, presumably, or I guess you can make a contract without their permission, technically, too. But in most cases, you can reject if it's like not food or something of that nature.
And how were they receiving your questions or your responses to their questions? Because I'm sure they asked them details, right?
Basically just asked, what color my eyes, how tall was I, how much I weigh. That was.
So
did you answer those questions?
Answered the eyes question, hair color, and how much I weighed. I was about curious with all the questions they were asked.
Did they ask any questions in reference to the incident, alleged incident?
No.
All right. Okay, well maybe they're in check a little bit. I mean, I use that loosely.
They probably
were
know who they were
complete check,
dealing
we
with.
wouldn't be here.
Yeah, they know who they're dealing with. Well, this is certainly an interesting first. Well, I want to say first encounter, but I don't know if first encounter is quite the right word because you have a history, right?
First booking.
First booking, though.
All right. Well, at least it was for a freedom-oriented charge. Like traveling is completely your right to
I was
do.
definitely a little confused whenever he told me the charges. I was like, oh, okay. Kind of caught me off guard with the two charges.
So you, what did you, Interesting. Okay, so we got disobeying a police officer, and what was the other charge again?
Operating a motor vehicle without a valid license.
Not a valid license. Yeah, interesting.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be in here anymore.
Yeah, I'm a little disturbed.
Well, hey, man, good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you beat this, and I hope you ride free.
Yeah. So,
live free or die. Right? It's the state motto.
Aren't they changing it?
Fucking, I'm not changing it. They can change it all they want. I'm going to call it live free or die.
Yeah.
You know who pushed for that? The guy who owns Fun Spot. He's the one that pushed for that slogan in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Yeah, years ago. And I really like supporting Fun Spot because
That's up north.
in Laconia. Yeah, I think we're gonna have an event there soon, a maskless event. Yeah, and get a lot of people there. All right, guys, there we go. Free for now. Let's see what's going on here. I want to do a perimeter check before I leave.
We gotta celebrate your.
You got me a cupcake.
Aw.
Yes.
Guys, here's the crossing lady that assaulted Garrett.
Hello.
No! You get that away from me right now!
Excuse me.
Mean it! Get it away!
You just assaulted me.
No, I don't care! You don't even belong here! I don't care! He's not gonna I have a right! He is not gonna videotape me!
You do not have a right! You're in public and you're a public employee!
I was surprised you picked up on that.
Yeah, I can remember her face all from way back.
Yeah.
Remember the snow on the ground? It's like, you can't record me! Whack!
Did they take your pennies?
No, they didn't take anything.
They didn't take his pennies. Molly, come back over here away from the parking lot. Why did they not take your pennies?
They didn't take the pennies.
There's like everything on you, and I was like, I got some pennies. He said, I got some pennies. Where are they? Well, there's some here, there's some here, there's some down here.
Did they count them? Did they have to give you a receipt and count them?
No, he just left them in my pocket.
Oh, that's too bad. Usually they'll take your money when
That's what I was thinking, but it was good about it.
yeah, that's probably why they did it. They know better. They don't want to play those games. It's like, yeah, pennies aren't going to hurt anybody.